Today, I tell you the story of a boy born without magic in a world ruled by it, who was specially raised to become a human weapon despite his deficiencies. Although he was classified as a low rank in his academy where everyone treated him like trash, according to them, he was useless. They didn't know that the guy was highly trained and had the skills to get rid of any opponent who put their mission at risk. So, if you are interested in the story of this boy, stay, make yourself comfortable, and bring the popcorn because Sumo Irregular Magic Season 1. The story begins by introducing us to this girl, Miyuki, who had begun to live with our protagonist, Tatsuya, or rather, to be protected by him. Unlike her, she was treated like someone of royalty. The poor boy had the role of a servant for his family. Even Miyuki's mother told him that he should not worry about how to treat the boy and rather not see him as a tool at her service. Days later, while Miyuki was taking a walk around and since she was always accompanied by the boy, she wondered why she should be protected by him since she had much more magical power. So, his presence was not necessary, and he was simply making her uncomfortable, or so she thought, until she ran into some soldiers that wanted to disrespect him. Although he wanted to defend himself using his skills, he had forgotten his cat, a kind of magical tool at home. What he did not expect was that the protagonist not only challenged the guys but was even able to confront them using his combat skills, body to body, and despite the difference in size, it didn't take much effort to take his opponent out of the game. Witnessing these actions completely changed the girl's perspective on him. Although after returning home, Miyuki was a little disappointed, hearing how Tatsuya only he had protected her to fulfill his mission and not because of the relationship they both had. But well, days later, the higher-ups of Miyuki's family organized a kind of meeting to agree on some terms. And as always, the protagonist was invited only as an escort and not as part of the family. Although some of his cousins who apparently admired him wanted to spend time with him, his father stopped them and made the protagonist see that it was best that he not interact with his children and simply fulfill his duty. Role as a guard. Luckily, that didn't seem to bother the boy, who simply acted cold and good once the party was over. While Miyuki and her mother were enjoying their days off, they were attacked by a friendly organization that, in the middle of some kind of missile, was about to blow up the ship they were traveling on. Miyuki wanted to do something now that she had her cat, but she knew that her magic wouldn't be enough. What she didn't expect was that Tatsuya, who was said to be useless, used a kind of technique with which she managed to dismantle the missiles from a distance and, of course, without even having to use a cat. The girl was shocked. She didn't even understand if the technique she had used was magic, and if it was so powerful, why they treated him like garbage. After this, the family was visited by the military of the area to obtain more details of the attack from before and start an investigation. Its leader also took the opportunity to apologize for the incident that his recruit had caused, forcing him to apologize to Tatsuya. He also invited the latter to his training session since perhaps someone with his talent in the future could join their ranks. For his part, the boy, who, as always, only followed orders, decided to visit the military base on the orders of his mother. In quotes, who wanted him to know the techniques of the guys once there, after witnessing some practice combats. The captain invited Tatsu to participate in one of them in order to learn about his abilities, which the protagonist ended up agreeing to. Although once the meeting began, they realized that Tatsu was no longer a normal boy, his martial arts were on another level. And secondly, he desisted from his opponent after this. The officer from before wanted to face him. Of course, in a sparring where magic would be allowed, Miyuki did not agree with the idea since she believed that the protagonist would not have a chance in a battle of that kind. But Tatsu already told him not to worry since he had been specially trained for that type of fight. His opponent immediately used corporeal magic to increase his strength and speed when attacking, yet Tatsu was already able to dodge it solely based on physical strength. The guy continued to fight against him. Something that did not help much after the plot activated his true ability that allowed him to disable the spells of his rivals and with which he was able to defeat the soldier in seconds. Everyone who saw the encounter was shocked. That boy was a true machine. although we will know the way his technique works later. Either way, thanks to his demonstration of strength, the commander offered him a position in his ranks if he wanted. Although the boy was not interested since his only mission was to protect Miyuki. A few days later, the girl's mother found out that the island where they were was being attacked by an organization of rebel magicians who wanted to destroy the powerful families that were there. Therefore, the High Command advised the woman to take shelter in the military bunker. Since in that place, they could be safe. For his part, Tatsu was already ready for the confrontations that could occur, although once they were in the militia facilities with another high-ranking family when the place began to be attacked, Miyuki's mother ordered the Prote to investigate what was happening and, if possible, put an end to the threat, which was not the case. The latter does not agree since he did not want to get away from his sister to keep her saved, but the woman put him in his place, telling him that he was a mere tool. So he should not forget his position. Although in the end, the protagonist was right because after he left the room where they were, it was attacked by some soldiers who betrayed their organization to ally themselves with the dark magicians, and now they were about to end the lives of the people in that room. Miyuki tried to defend herself using her magic, and although she managed to neutralize one of them, her skills were not too fast and so much. Her assistant as well as her mother and she were hit by the guy's weapons. Luckily, at that moment, Tatsu was already present, ending the lives of all the soldiers in seconds, of course, using the same skill as before to do it. Even though it was too late, his sister was about to hang up his tennis shoes. That was what we believed since the boy used a variation of his ability to heal the wounds of both his sister and the other two women. Obviously, Miyuki did not understand how the hell he had done it. However, at that time, there was no time for explanation since after getting them to safety and fixing the situation of rebellion in the place, he asked the captain to give him all the details of what was happening on the island. After finding out that they had been besieged by the attackers, he asked that he take his sister and mother to a safer place. In addition to lending him an armored suit to join the action since he planned to make those responsible for his sister being injured pay dearly. Miyu did not agree that the protagonist risked his life and also wanted to know why, if he was so skilled, he was treated that way by his mother, to which the boy advised him to ask her. In addition to not worrying, he would return alive since he had to continue fulfilling the mission of protecting her. Once he obtained the necessary equipment, Tatsu already joined the battlefront in which, thanks to his skills, he had become a beast. Since with his ability, he was responsible for disintegrating his enemies and his time to heal the wounds of his comrades so that they could continue fighting. Meanwhile, Miyuki, who had been observing everything from the base, asked her mother why her brother was treated that way, to which the woman explained that in reality, Tatsu was already nothing more than a simple machine, explaining to him how he had been born without the gift of using magic, a process that consisted of modifying matter to give it another form. He could only destroy it, and since he belonged to a family of magicians, that was a shame, which is why he was subjected to a series of experiments to improve his power, thanks to which he became able not only to destroy matter but also to create objects based on information, something like alchemy. However, this process was not the same as that of magic. Rather, it was a flaw in nature. The worst of all was that in the process, she had lost all her emotions, and now she only had the desire to fulfill the mission of protecting Miyuki. After this, the girl finally understood why her brother acted so cold. But well, returning to the boy, he had practically eliminated 0% of the army on his own, yet he was taking down a kind of submarine that was trying to destroy the island. So Miyuki's assistant used his skills to give the boy a chance to destroy the machine, an opportunity that Tatsu no longer squandered. But the price was very expensive since the girl received serious ridicule. And despite the fact that the latter offered to heal her with his power, the assistant, who, in an experiment like the protagonist, asked him to leave her, saying that she was tired of being used as a tool. She says, telling him that she hoped that one day he would also be free. But well, after this, We jump a few years later where they show us how both brothers had recently entered one of the most magical academies, prestigious, but Tatsu was already classified as a reserve student while his sister was classified as a first-class student. The girl is furious that the school did not recognize her brother's talents, yet the boy did not seem to care too much, and they explain to us how that academy specializes in teaching magic prodigies, and the students who have great power enter Course 1 while those who have a small amount are sent to Course 2. After explaining this to us, they introduce us to these two girls, Miyuki and Chika, who, like the boy, belong to Course 2. After listening to a speech by the best qualified student, Tatsu already introduced his sister to the new friends he had met. Also, while doing so, they introduced us to Sugusa, the president of the council, student who was interested in the skills of this Miyuki. On the other hand, Tatsu already met this boy, Leon, another classmate from Course 2, but that is not important. The important thing is that when Miyuki wanted to spend time with her brother, students from Course 1 were not happy with it. Since according to them the prodigies could not relate to the school trash, the incident came to a head when at the end of class, the girl wanted to go home with Tatsuya and the guys prevented her from doing so even though they did not count on the students of Course 2 were not useless, and when they wanted to humiliate them, the girl disarmed one of them. While the plot, using his ability, was able to undo the spell on one of them. Although they were interrupted by members of the council who were furious for disturbing the order, the protagonist so as not to cause problems. She said that the students of Course 1 only gave them a demonstration of their skills. The next day, Sugusa invited the brothers to the council room. Once there, the girl introduced them to the rest of the members of the council, and the reason why she summoned him was because he wanted to offer Miyuki a position on the council. The girl did not agree with that, telling him that it would be a better option for his brother to be chosen for it since his grades in theoretical narration were the best, but they explained to him that that was not possible since according to the rules, the students of Year 2 could not belong to the council. That suited the protagonist who did not want to stand out like a glove, but to his bad luck, the person in charge of the disciplinary committee offered him a position in their ranks since it would be useful to him. With someone with his ability to read magical attacks, but the protagonist told him that perhaps that was not a good idea since the students of the committee had to subdue the students who broke the rules, and someone with so little power could not be much. Besides, the vice president of the council did not agree with this decision since I could not accept that a scum like those from Course 2 was in their ranks, which made Miyuki offer that he would not allow him to speak badly of his brother, but the vice president only ended up questioning his trial since she should not allow her love for her brother to blind her. Tatsu would no longer allow her brother's judgment to be questioned. So she challenged the vice president to a duel. The boy was furious, but in the end he accepted and they were both taken to a fight. Special room where they could fight at ease. Either way, Tatsu already had a fairly old model of cat due to the little magical power he had, and after listening to the instructions, the battle began. The vice president created a strategy with which he could neutralize the protagonist. But that did not go as expected since as soon as the duel began the winner was decided. Atatu already had enough seconds to knock the boy out of combat. The council could not believe what had happened. Who the hell was Tatsuya? After what happened, they asked him if he had done anything. A movement spell before starting the match, but Tatsu already explained to them that he had moved only with his physical ability. He also revealed that to knock him out he only used sound waves to affect his senses. Once he had shown that he was highly competent, the leader of the committee gave him the last instructions on how he now had the duty to maintain order in the school, and for this he was authorized to use force. After this, the protagonist began his new role, and while patrolling, he was able to notice how in the kendo confrontation between two students, one of them he was about to use magic of a high level of danger. So he had no choice but to stop him using his technique to block magic and his martial arts skills to leave him out of combat, leaving everyone in the place shocked. The boy's companions did not notice. They stood idly by and tried to attack, but they had no chance against Tatsu, who easily neutralized them, and after neutralizing them, he presented his report to the committee leaders so that the boys would have the appropriate punishment. Days later, The president held a debate in which the students who had formed a movement against discrimination against the students of Year 2 made their ideas known, but when the debate took place the students were attacked by several armed guys since everything had been a trap created by an organization, someone else who had been manipulating the students in order to carry out their plans. Luckily some boys were able to act quickly, neutralizing several of them. But they were still in trouble because the guy's real objective was to steal confidential information from the academy. So they had to act quickly. Tatsu already set off accompanied by several of his companions, thanks to whom it did not take them too much work to reach the central building, and using a technique with which Tatsuya could detect the presence of the guys, they managed to get rid of them when they reached the room central where several guys were. Miyuki, using her magical power, neutralized the attackers who were trying to seize the documents after doing so and getting the robbery attempt. The council interrogated Maibu, the girl who had been manipulated by the organization, and apparently she had been deceived by the president of her club who had been gathering the discriminated boys to carry out her plan. Tatsu already told them that they could not sit idly by. Calling the police was out of the question, since if they did, the students who had been manipulated would end up behind bars, so it was best for them to take care of the situation by proposing an attack on their barracks. Yummanji, one of the committee leaders, agreed. So after organizing a small squad, they set off, and after Tatsu split up, together with Miyuki, they ran into the leader who had an ace up his sleeve. He tried to hypnotize Tatsuya with his eye magic. Although that was predicted by the protagonist, who easily managed to deactivate the spell, the guy had been put in Yaka. And although his men tried to protect him, Tatsu already disarmed them using the same technique, while Miyuki gave the final touch by freezing, thus finally managing to dismantle the organization that was behind the information, leaving that event behind. The truly exciting thing was about to begin, this because the 10 o'clock tournament schools would soon start a tournament where each academy chooses its best students to participate, but on this occasion they had a problem, and it was the lack of engineers, people who maintain the cats and the branch to which Tatsu was already dedicated. For this reason the council asked him to participate as an engineer, since they did not have another person as reliable. So the boy had no choice but to accept. Although before that they revealed to us that the boy had joined the militia, who warned him to be careful since that a betting organization had set its eyes on the tournament. By the way, before starting the tournament Tatsu already saved Masuki from a magical attack caused by this boy Mikiko, who had been practicing when his magic got out of control. His magic was from spirits, a magic quite peculiar and that very few people were able to use, but well, once the students were at the tournament site they all attended an opening party where they met the students from the other schools, including the Crimson Prince, one of the heirs of one of the most important families. By the way, at the meeting the president of the union of the 10 schools put a test in the room in which only 5 students were able to detect among them the protagonist the president had done to know the students who could be the most promising. But well, now the time for the competitions arrived. The first to compete were the third-year girls, like the committee leader who won her magic surf competition, as well as the president, whom by the way Tatsu already he attended as an engineer and easily won his competition. But despite his victories at the end of the first day, several students had not had the expected performance, so they would need to win all the competitions to win the tournament. But still the hope of winning was still alive, since, thanks to Tatsuya's engineering skills, the first-year girls won all their competitions without problems. The technology that the boy used was too advanced. One of the competitors even wanted to hire him for her family. Thanks to this, his school remained top of mind, and the Academy of the Crimson Prince had become interested in his abilities. Since in all the competitions in which he participated, his competitors had swept the Academy's positions, they were safe, although they did not count on their first-year male participants suffering from a caused mishap by the betters. Therefore they would not be able to participate in the next competition, and one of the most important, the team battle. Although they had one last card left, Tatsuya, the president, requested their help since they needed a participant who was skilled enough to win on his own. The guy refused since he only wanted to participate as an engineer, although he was convinced by Manji, who asked him not to turn his back on his school, that he did accept, but he would choose his teammates, who would be Leo and Miki Hike. Once the team was decided, Tatsu already explained to them what their roles would be. Leo would be in charge of the defense, and for that Tatsu already developed a special cat that would fit him like a glove, and Mikiko with her spirits would be in charge of the middle zone while he would be the offensive after this. The first battle began where the protagonist demonstrated his skills, impressing the prince with his technique of deactivating magic and easily winning the first match. After several matches, the team of Tatsuya and the prince reached the finals where both would face each other, and for that the protagonist used a strategy to use a type of cape to avoid the ability of one of the enemies. Days later, the battle began. Tatsu already began a power-to-power shooting against the prince. The latter launched powerful explosions, but the protagonist cancelled them at a high speed. Incredible, the encounter had become a battle of resistance. While the rest of the members faced each other, but due to Prince Tatsu's carelessness, he was already about to intercept him. Because of this, he accidentally launched a deadly attack that went against the rules. The protagonist's life was in danger. Fortunately, he managed to cancel most of the attacks, but 2 of them made contact. Everyone believed that he had been destroyed, but they did not expect that he would come out as if nothing had happened, since he used the regeneration technique this time on himself, and thanks to that he was able to defeat the prince. His companions took advantage of a commotion to eliminate the rest, thus winning the match. Everyone was shocked to see the kind of monster that Tatsuya was. The betting organization was furious because if the protagonist's high school was victorious, they would have $1 million losses. So they decided to continue putting their hands in the tournament, but Tatsu would no longer allow that, and with the help of his contacts he obtained the location of said organization. Once that was done, he organized a one-man attack by carrying out a long-distance ambush and using the attack. Capable of dismantling magical particles, he killed all the members without them being able to do anything after this. At the end of the tournament, the winning school was Tatsuya's. Although after the celebrations, Manji advised him to join one of the 10 families, advising him to do so. Marrying Sagusa, since this way his power would not be wasted. But after the tournament, now the time had come for the engineers to compete in an event that took place every year where the academies presented their new discoveries, and the Plota was chosen to be part of the group that would participate. After this, the preparations for the project began. Although they had to be careful since many organizations placed their eyes on said event to take over the technologies, even the engineers had to have bodyguards. Of course, that for the protagonist that was not necessary, and on the day the presentation finally arrived, although Tatsu, to be sure of the security, asked some of his colleagues to keep an eye on the event. Either way, at the place he met the prince again, who this time was in charge of security of the event, and the presentation finally began. The protagonist team announced their project. Everything seemed to be going well until the place was attacked and the members of the organizations took the students hostage. Upon seeing this, Tatsu already used his mercenary skills, achieving get rid of most of the attackers whose weapons were of no use. After doing so, together with his friends, they formed a squad to make way for the attackers and his companions to evacuate. Since they had to eliminate the traces of their investigations so that the guys would not take them over, when they arrived at the place where the investigations were located, they also ran into Sagosa and the rest of the council, who had already contacted their families to exchange reinforcements with which they could escape. But while they were talking, the colleagues whom the Plata asked for their help appeared, revealing to everyone that Tatsu already belonged to the militia and that they would need their help to neutralize the attackers. So after saying goodbye to his sister, he set off to carry out their role as soldiers. After this, the students first set off to reach the place where they would be picked up, but on the way they had to overcome the attack of several enemies. They also had to hold out in the open field for some time until the helicopters arrived. They would come for them, so it was best to separate into groups. Meanwhile, Tatsu was already taking care of a large number of attackers. On the other hand, Sagusa managed to board one of the helicopters while Tatsuya was in charge of covering their retreat. The next ones were Miyuki's group and the friends of the plot. The only ones left were the group of friends and other students. However, they were attacked by surprise and 2 of them were seriously injured. Miyuki went to their aid, getting rid of the guys and contacting Tatsuya so that he could cure them. Thanks to he was able to save their lives, but he could not stay with them since he had to finish his job. The battle had turned into a massacre in favor of the militia since his squad was relentless, thanks to Tatsuya's healing ability. When they were eliminated, they got up as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, Tatsu's companions were already explaining to us how he had managed to cure them, and Miyuki explained to them how his technique worked and how to use it had a price, since when restoring the wounds the protagonist could feel the pain of that person. When he did it quickly, he felt the pain multiplied by 10. His companions could not believe that the guy was capable of submitting to such a degree of pain. Meanwhile, the attacking organization realized that they had no chance against the militia, so they had no other option. They decided to retreat, but they did not expect that upon their departure they would be attacked by Tatsuya himself, who, using a long-distance cat, managed to destroy the ship in which they were fleeing, completely annihilated. And well, after this all the students managed to get out safely. However, now the identity of the protagonist had been revealed to several of them. In addition, the leader of Miyuki's family wanted to meet with him and the protagonist to determine their future. By the way, since that incident that day was recognized as the incandescent Halloween, where it was shown that due to more weapons that other organizations had still had no chance against magic. But well, that's the end of the first season, but don't worry, since I also summarized part of the second. So continuing the incandescent Halloween event, fans from foreign organizations arrived who now knew that a new strategist class magicians classified in that rank for having a power that threatens entire nations was in Japan, so they would send one of their best agents known for coldly finishing off their opponents to investigate who was the person behind the incident, and if it was someone dangerous to end his life. The one chosen for this was Angie, who once in Japan posed as a magic student at Academia del Plata, since he knew that the guy he was looking for was a student at that institution. The worst of all was that he had some suspicions about Tatsuya. Luckily the latter, as we already know, was not stupid, and after a few days living with her he discovered that Angie was after him, so without hesitation finish with the summary. Although don't worry, after this many things happen, like the parasites continue to attack. So if you want me to bring the next part to this chronology, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell, so you don't miss the next part. Now, take a break.